Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhodes, is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments Brokers, Tom Albers, Brad Wilson, Ben Erlinson, and Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
All right, here we go, this 3 o'clock hour. Mack Rhodes, Director of Athletics at Baylor, subcommittee of the Big 12 expansion, and God knows what else. We haven't talked to Mack in a long time. He's been very busy. You have been a busy man. Did you have any meetings today by any chance when it came to the conference?
No meetings today relative to the conference. So how about that? And just by the way, thank you for finally fitting me in.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
For a while, and so I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Wow, that's a very. Hey, I got a fundamental question. I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Does the Big 12 expanding, whenever that time comes, or even discussing expansion, does that in any way, shape, or form affect the grant of rights with anybody else in the conference?
In general, no, it does not.
So you can talk about expansion with other teams and or look into expansion, and it does not affect the grant of rights and when it ends.
You know, all I will say is that right now we have a conference of 10 members, and at least for now, we believe, all 10 of those members will be members through the 24-25 season. All 10 are voting members and participate or can participate in any vote or change in membership in the future, and that does not impact future grant of rights or other obligations.
From the day that you testified in front of the Senate here to now, how would you say the track of the Big 12 has changed?
It's a great question. I think, like anything, after, initial, impact, I think there's this evolutionary process, this period of time of, trying to get your feet settled underneath you and understand what has happened and then, focusing on how you move forward. And so I think there will be, that period of uncertainty. And look, there's always uncertainty, but I think that period of uncertainty will become clear in the future. And I do believe the Big 12 has a great future ahead of it.
You can't really say much, can you?
No, I really can. And I know people understand that, and I know that you all understand that, and you need to ask those questions. And so I completely respect that. I've been blessed and as you mentioned at the beginning of the segment, to be on the expansion committee. I signed as well as everybody else a confidentiality form. And, as the athletic director for, one of 10 institutions right now, it's not my place to talk about anything specifically as to our future. That's really the commissioner's place. And so, I respect that. But I'm not going to be, bashful in saying that, I think we've got a bright future, and I think Baylor has a prominent place in that future.
If there was a non-disclosure agreement, then how come not everybody is abiding by it within the conference? Because I've seen others who have discussed expansion. I've seen others discuss the numbers that they would like as far as teams. Is that dangerous, or is that kind of something that you're trying to, as a conference, maybe put out a couple of those, I guess, things that are being said?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of everyone, and we're gonna do our best to adhere to that and be respectful to those that are asking the questions. If you're asking my opinion, should we expand? Number one, number two, should what's that number? I would tell you, yeah, I absolutely believe that we should expand, but it's got to be the right, the right institutions. I would, if I had to choose between two or four, I would tell you that, I think, that just given landscape, given potential, additions, right? If that's what we do, I like the number four, and again, I think that could be really, really good for the Big 12.
What about 4 or 6?
Yeah, I think whatever happens in the future, that doesn't preclude from another step. Not saying that would happen, but it wouldn't, I think, preclude from another step, another phase. But for me right now, I just again, my opinion only. I think 4 for a lot of different reasons, which hard for me to talk about without breaking confidentially. But I think 4, if we're gonna do anything, is very compelling versus 6 at the moment.
You have been an AD at other places. Does that give you maybe even more insight on what can be accomplished at other places where you've been?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it gives me some insight into any of those particular institutions, and I think I'm grateful for the other 7 member institutions that will remain in the Big 12. I think there's great value there. Got great respect for the presidents, chancellors, the athletic directors, and if we choose to grow and bring in additional members, we owe it to each of ourselves. We owe it to the 8 to be really, really thoughtful and careful about who those members are, and making sure that they make the Big 12 better, that they don't weigh down the Big 12, and it gives us great opportunity to grow. I think about just the idea of hiring coaches or head coaches, right? You hire coaches, right, with the hope and the intent, or for that matter, any staff, that what they are today isn't what they're going to be 5 years from now. That 5 years from now, they're going to even be better. They're going to be much better. And so I think that's certainly part of the thought process. And quite frankly, Baylor needs to be better five years from now. We probably just finished up arguably the best year in the history of Baylor athletics, when you think about not just athletic success, but academic success, our other 2 pillars, character formation, spiritual growth. And yet, we need to be better 5 years from now. We had an all-staff meeting today, and we talked about it. We talked about I believe this. Our best days are still ahead of us, and I'm going to echo those same sentiments with the Big 12.
Mac, you have two teams, Texas and Oklahoma. I got to ask you before I can ask you a follow-up question, and I don't know what you can tell me, but they have asked that they've already made I guess they've already said they're leaving or for another conference at the end of 24-25. Am I right with that? That they have asked for out of the conference?
Yes, I mean
okay.
that's been public, and they're each of their boards voted to do that, and the SEC voted to accept them.
Okay, so my question, and I hope I can ask this correctly, is if in fact that is true, why do they still get to vote?
Well, look, that's certainly a fair question, and I'm not our outside, Big 12's outside counsel, and so I haven't certainly read every line, through a legal lens in terms of our bylaws and our grant of rights. But fact remains is they are still members until 24-25, and we're gonna treat them as such, and that is certainly following our bylaws.
Go ahead, Paul.
Before this happened, obviously you guys were working on the next TV deal and all of those rights, and then this kind of threw a wrench in that, because or you at least trying to move towards that. How much involved is the conference now talking with potential other TV partners, and how difficult are those discussions, not being able to really know what you're saying just yet?
Yeah, Paul, I appreciate the question, and I was part of that committee, and for now, I think those conversations, that dialogue has been put on pause until we have more clarity, a better understanding of what the Big 12 is going to be. The institutions, the number of institutions. But certainly here in the near future, I think we'll begin to re-engage. And you think about 24-25. It's a long time from now, and this has been a really changing landscape, and I would say rapidly changing landscape when you think about television and you think about cord cutting and linear television broadcasts, and right now CBS to some degree, but it's primarily ESPN and Fox, and 3 to 4 years from now, 5 years from now, are there more bidders, buyers in that space when we think about college athletics, live content, linear, and then I think we're still figuring out the digital aspect. Obviously ESPN has ESPN Plus, but does an Amazon or a Netflix or some of those others get into this space, and how do you monetize that? So, a lot of fluidity to all of it, but to answer your question, we'll get back re-engaged. Here I think in the near future, once we have a little bit more certainty about who we are.
Mac, when the news came out, which has now been several weeks ago, about Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, I can't imagine anybody was more blindsided, it appears, than the commissioner himself. And there were thoughts, would he even make it another week or two? Because we know what it did to the conference. We know what it did to Baylor. We know what it did to all the teams, the 8 remaining teams, and how dangerous that time was. What have you seen from Bob Bowlsby in response to that being basically knocked on the canvas?
Yeah, I don't know that it's completely fair for me to speak on behalf of Bob, but I do know this, and I don't think that he needed to share it with anybody, but I do think he was hurt. There was some trust there, and not some, but I think a lot of trust between Bob and the 10 member institutions, and I think that was really hard for him. I think he showed great resolve. Is probably as hard as that was for him. He's been at work constantly, consistently about how do we move forward, and I think I can speak on behalf of the presidents, chancellors, the athletic directors that we're grateful that he's been in the foxhole. I'd like to think that we've all been in the foxhole with him in terms of figuring this out and how do we best move forward.
Mac, just a brief question on Texas State last week and the broadcast issues that they had. I don't want to relitigate that. I mean, it happened. I mean, and everything has to deal with it. But, there were issues when it comes to replay and technology. In the future with Tier 3 rights, if that's going to be what you have to do, where you take a school's in-house broadcast, is there need to be some sort of spot check or anything that the conferences need to do to make sure that teams are ready to go, for these things to get ready for Tier 3 rights, because clearly not everybody is ready for something like that.
Yeah, Paul, I appreciate the question. And, I don't want to be harsh, but I obviously was not pleased, to say the least. I appreciate that Texas State has taken ownership in it and has apologized for it. But I think you bring up a great point. And I've already talked to Dennis Polian, Marcus Sedbury, and Jovan Overshone that in the future, when we think about games, visiting non-conference, visiting games contractually, do we need to begin to spell out standards for any third tier broadcast? Not all non-conference away games are third tier, but do we need to begin to do that to ensure that doesn't happen? Unfortunate, and I know our fans weren't happy. I wasn't happy, and for that matter, Texas State wasn't happy. So we've got to find a way to prevent that from ever happening again. You think about this, Paul. What happens if it's a close game and that touchdown, that's a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Because replay's not working, well, that's unacceptable. Replay has to be working. But I do. I appreciate that Texas State has taken full ownership, and look, I know the people there. They're really good people, and they'll get better because of it.
Yeah, replay. For fans watching and listening right now, replay is as fundamental as if the chains were broken. They wouldn't be like, "Well, the chains are broken. We're just not going to measure first downs." I mean, it's part of the rules.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. So here's what I was really proud of. So unbelievable throw and catch by Josh Fleets, and obviously incorrect call was a touchdown. Josh didn't moan. He ran back, and on the very next play, blocked his tail off. And proud of Josh for the way he reacted to that and the way that he moved on.
Mac, I want to ask you about a timeline because there's so much. I know you're kind of bound by the non-disclosure agreement and all that. So you have 10 teams. 2 of them are leaving. Can the conference have discussion on expansion while they're still a part of the conference?
Can we have discussion about it? Absolutely. We can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you vote on it?
Yeah, absolutely we can. I'll jump ahead and answer the next question for you. Can we add before? those two leave? Yes, absolutely we can. So those are things that they're all in play, all been talked about, vetted. And again, I think I started the segment where, I'm not going to be bashful about saying that, I think the Big 12 has a bright future.
Then also on top of that, if in fact you can do all of what you just mentioned, you are doing that, does that in any way affect the current television contract that you have that runs through 24-25?
Not negatively. It does not. Could it enhance? That would remain to be seen if we indeed change membership, prior to the end of the current contract. But negatively impact, no, I don't believe so. We don't believe so.
When we had you on after things went down, I asked you this question. Do you believe in your heart that Baylor would remain a part of a Power 5 conference and a part of the autonomy? And you said then you did. And with what appears to be going on right now with possible momentum, and if not just momentum, maybe not just a pulse, but down the tracks, do you feel even better today than you did back when you said that to me?
And I'm struggling with my answer because, I felt certain of it then and I feel certain of it today. I think that vision is probably a little bit clearer today than it was then. But so, that's probably the best way for me to describe it. The difference between 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whenever that was, and today. And I think our fans know this. I think our student athletes know this. Our staff knows that we're gonna fight, scratch, and claw like crazy for what's best for Baylor, and it's certainly in this instance what's best for the Big 12.
You feel like there's going to be something that is more than just what you can say now, even matter of days or weeks?
I would, yeah. I mean, I think probably the closest I can get to that is sooner rather than later.
Hey, Mac, how about a home game this weekend? How about that?
Really? Do we have one?
Yeah. That's what I heard, at least. That's what I heard.
I understand that it kicks off at 6 o'clock. Yeah, I'm excited. The old adage, right, that the most improvement a football team makes is between week 1 and week 2. And I thought our performance was somewhat a little bit of a coach's dream, right? Did some really good things that you could point to, but there were enough things that you did wrong that there was the opportunity to catch the attention of both your staff and your young men, and talk extensively about standard and execution and how that performance measured up, and again, a lot of really good things, but also some specific things that we can be better at, that we are better at than what we showed, and so I think that's the challenge, going into Saturday's game is to get better into those, in those areas, and to play to the standard that we have set for ourselves.
Mac, I've had one question I wanted to ask you, and there's one more about expansion. And thanks for your time today. And I'm glad that you found time for us with your long whatever you've been. If in fact, okay, heck, it doesn't matter. I can go. I can ask it another time. I'll ask it another time.
Sure?
Yeah.
All right.
I think we.
I'm
Yeah.
going to ask it. If I can't answer it, I'll tell you I can't answer it.
Yeah, I'll try to text it to you. I kind of just went blank on it, to be honest
Need
with
to
you.
word it right.
The home game thing just threw me.
Sorry.
I mean, I was focused.
Mac, don't let him say he went blank. He's getting old. It just happens. If we don't address it, it won't get better.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. All right.
Well, to that would be a human resource. I'm not down that.
I do have the question. What's the difference if the Big 12 is in contact with teams in other conferences, or maybe even one that may not be a part of a conference, in what the SEC and what Texas and Oklahoma were doing?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I'm glad you remembered. I think it's process. I think it's the way it's done. I think schools need to be the ones to submit application to have those. I just think it's about the process, but I also think it's about transparency and how you handle it with your own conference, and maybe not just how you handle it with maybe the conference that you want to become a member of, but the conference that you're in, and so I think it's a really complicated question. I'd like to think that certainly. I don't think. I know that the Big 12 has handled it the right way, and I'm not saying any other conference did not. So I don't want anybody to read into that. And I can't really speak to how how any future potential member would handle it with their own conference.
Thank you. I'm glad my brain checked back in for just enough of a second. I was panicking there, and I started sweating right here on the air with this interview. Thanks for your time, Mac. We'll see you Saturday. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Look forward to it.
Mac Rhodes, Baylor's Director of Athletics. A lot of you should have been reading between the lines on either what he